Melody Murfin, Robert Lee Yates. In the spring of 1998, women were disappearing from East Sprague Avenue in Spokane, Washington. They were mothers, daughters, women surviving on the street, and they were being found in shallow graves outside the city, shot with the same caliber weapon, their bodies sometimes covered with plastic bags. The task force hunting the killer built a profile of a predator living somewhere in the margins. The man they were looking for was a decorated Army veteran with 19 years as a National Guard helicopter pilot, a father of 5, a churchgoer with a house in a good neighborhood, and a white Corvette. Robert Lee Yates had flown military helicopters, served his country overseas, and coached his children's activities. And between 1996 and 1998, he murdered at least 13 women. And there was an older debt. In 1975, 2 college students named Patrick Oliver and Susan Savage had been shot to death while picnicking near a lake in Walla Walla, a double murder that haunted the town for 25 years with no suspect at all. The killer had been a young man just beginning his military career. When Yates finally confessed as part of his plea agreement, that quarter-century-old case closed with the rest, and 2 more families learned that the man they had been imagining all those years wore a flight suit. He picked victims whose disappearances drew little urgency, and his respectability did the rest. When detectives finally reached him through a trace on the white Corvette, they took a DNA sample, and the veteran pilot matched the crime scenes. Then came the detail that Spokane has never forgotten. One of his victims, 43-year-old Melody Murfin, had never been found. She was found now. Yates had buried her in his own yard, beneath the window of the bedroom he shared with his wife, and then slept beside that window for 2 years. He pleaded guilty to 13 murders in 2000, and was later convicted of 2 more. His family, by every account, had known nothing. They had lived, the entire time, inside his alibi. The house on Imperial Avenue, Anthony Sowell, in Cleveland, Ohio, in the late 2000s, a neighborhood grew used to a smell. It hung over Imperial Avenue, thick in the summer heat, and everyone blamed the sausage factory next door to the tall, quiet man at number 122005. The man was Anthony Sowell, a United States Marine for 7 years, a veteran the neighbors called respectful, the kind of man who shoveled snow for others and sat on his porch in the evenings. Women from the neighborhood, many of them struggling with addiction, had been vanishing for 2 years. Their families filed reports. The reports went quietly nowhere. A year before the end, one woman told police she had been attacked inside that house and fought her way out. No charges were filed. The disappearances continued. In late October 2009, a woman escaped from the house and survived to tell police what had happened to her inside. When officers finally entered with a warrant, they found the remains of 11 women in the rooms, the crawl spaces, and the backyard of the house the neighborhood had walked past every day. The city smelled it and blamed sausage. The families reported it and were not heard. Sowell was convicted on 82 counts in 2011 and sentenced to death, and he died in prison in 2021. The case forced Cleveland to overhaul how it handles missing persons reports, because the 11 women had not been hidden cleverly. They had been hidden behind the assumptions people made about a veteran, and the assumptions people made about his victims. The Kill Kits, Israel Keyes. Israel Keyes served 3 years in the United States Army, and when he left the service, he took its discipline with him into something no profiler had seen before. Keyes did not hunt in one city. He flew across the country, rented cars, and drove hundreds of miles from any airport. Years in advance, he buried caches in remote spots across America, plastic barrels packed with weapons, cash, and tools, so that when the time came, he could kill in a state he had no connection to, using supplies that could never be traced to a purchase. He had no victim type, no pattern, no territory. He funded it all with bank robberies, studied the published histories of other serial killers the way an officer studies past campaigns, and noted their mistakes. He is confirmed or connected to nearly a dozen murders, including a Vermont couple, Bill and Lorraine Currier, taken from their home in 2011, with tools from a cache Keyes had buried nearby, 2 years before he ever chose them. By his own account, there were more he never named. The soldier's planning failed him only once. On February 1, 2012, he abducted 18-year-old Samantha Koenig from the Anchorage coffee stand where she worked. Samantha did not survive that night. But for weeks afterward, Keyes kept using her debit card, drawing cash from machines across the Southwest, and in March 2012, A highway stop in Texas ended a criminal career that had been designed to be unsolvable. In custody, Keyes calmly explained his methods to the FBI, the caches, the flights, the rules he followed, an after-action report delivered by the soldier who had run the operation. He died by suicide in his cell that December, taking most of his victims' names with him. The FBI still maintains a public file, asking for help identifying the rest. Marie-France Comeau and Jessica Lloyd, Russell Williams. By 2009, Colonel Russell Williams was one of the most trusted officers in the Canadian Forces. He had piloted VIP flights for prime ministers and for Queen Elizabeth II, and he commanded CFB Trenton, the largest Air Force base in the country, the base from which Canada's military missions abroad were launched. He was the man who saluted the coffins of returning soldiers, who signed the orders, who represented everything the uniform is supposed to mean. In November 2009, a corporal under his own command, a 37-year-old military flight attendant named Marie-France Comeau, a woman whose service record he had personally handled, was murdered in her home. In January 2010, a 27-year-old civilian named Jessica Lloyd vanished from hers, just off the highway near the base. At a roadside canvass days later, an officer noticed that the tires on the colonel's Pathfinder matched tracks left in the snow near Jessica's house. It seemed almost unthinkable to act on it. They acted on it. On February 7, 2010, Williams sat across from a detective sergeant in an interview room, still the commander of Canada's most important air base. The detective never raised his voice. Over 10 quiet hours, he laid out the tire impressions, then a boot print from the snow outside Jessica's window that matched the boots the colonel had worn to the interview, and closed off every exit one by one, until Williams folded his hands, asked what would happen to his cat, and requested a map. Then he told police where to find Jessica Lloyd. His confession, and the searches that followed, revealed years of escalating crimes, dozens upon dozens of break-ins across the towns near his postings, building steadily toward the two murders, a colonel's double life kept in meticulous, catalogued order. Williams pleaded guilty to everything. Canada stripped him of his rank and his medals, and the military took the extraordinary step of burning his uniform. The man had commanded thousands. The uniform, the country decided, could never be worn again by anyone. A helicopter pilot with 19 years of service. A Marine with 7. An Army veteran who planned murders like missions. A colonel who flew the Queen and commanded a nation's most important base. The uniform is one of the last things we trust on sight, and in courtroom after courtroom, the same sentence was spoken by stunned neighbors and fellow soldiers alike. He served his country, as if service and safety were the same word. We salute it, we thank it, and we build our picture of the person inside it, before they say a word. These 4 men understood that better than anyone, because they had worn it, and they knew that as long as they stood in its shadow, no one would look at them twice.